Welcome to the Be Still, Be Aware series, where nothing is off limits. I'm your host, Claire Foord. Let's talk. Hi there, thanks for joining us for the Be Still, Be Aware series. I'm joined by two special guests from Melbourne via Zoom. Lorinska Merrington, you might know her from the series Yummy Mummies, and Liz Blunt, her lifetime friend and business partner of Bub App. We're going to be talking about finding your village and the people that can support you through trials and tribulations, what pregnancy looks like, and how to parent in pregnancy, some of the things that you might be aware of and others that you might not be. So join us on this little journey as we chat through with Liz and Lorinska. Thanks for joining us. Let's talk.
Before we begin, we'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which this series is recorded and pay our respects to their elders, past, present and emerging.
When it comes to advocating for ourselves or speaking up, in pregnancy, I find that sometimes it's hard. But have you guys found that? Do you, and maybe I'm speaking out of turn, maybe I'm completely different, but that's certainly something that we find a lot, in terms of the people that contact us, is that I don't know if I'm wasting someone's time. I don't know if I'm being silly. I don't want to seem like I'm completely crazy, but you're not. Like, the whole point of having this, like what you guys have, is you're not silly, you're not crazy. I've got your back. It's your day to be wherever you're at, and I'm here to support you.
Yeah. I think too, like when you open yourself up and you're vulnerable, I think that's when you get the best support. When you say, okay, I'm struggling, or, there was about 3-4 weeks ago, I had to go in for a quick op, and I just said to Liz, having the girls at home, Florence is so little that she is super attached to me. Like, I can't go anywhere without her, even to the point where mum can't even have her for a night because she just gets so upset. But Liz had dropped off, and I said, I'm going to need a bit of help. And so we were in lockdown, so she obviously wasn't allowed to come in, but she dropped off all my food for the week, which we finished it off last night. And I'm spewing because it is the best chicken schnitzels ever. And as soon as you open up and you ask, and yes, it is scary. I mean, even myself, I never spoke about my miscarriage. I was petrified of breastfeeding. I never really opened up too much because I just thought, this is too private, and it's just, I need to do this with my family. I just want to go through it with my family. And then I was having a conversation with Liz, and she was talking to me about her issues. And I was like, you know what, Liz, this is what our brand is about. We say to open up, but yet I'm actually not doing it myself. And so, I took that leap of faith and I put it on social media to, 750,000 people. And the response was so overwhelming. And every mum was so in my corner. I didn't recall one bad message. It was, I've been there. I've gone through that. They give you little tips and tricks. And yes, it is hard to be vulnerable. Yes, it is hard to ask and open up. But I promise you, as soon as you do it, it's like this motherhood group are just like, whoa, we've got you, mama. And it's the best feeling. And I feel like as soon as you do become a mum, it's like this whole new cool club that you get invited to. And you're like, wow, is this what it's like? And I really commend other women that can open up and, talk about their struggles, because it is not easy. And I think part of the problem is you doubt, for me, my reflection with the miscarriage was the fact that, what have I done wrong? Why has my body failed me? I've done this to my family. I'm so sorry to put my husband through this, when it's completely out of your hands. You can't help it. And, when you speak to other mums, it's like they've got so many stories, and you initially feel better, and it's like cleansing. It's like, oh my goodness, I feel so much better now. I'm not alone. And I feel like that is the one message. There's not one thing that a mother hasn't gone through. Someone has gone through it somewhere. And to open up and and have that with a friend or a group or a mother's group is, it's priceless. You can't even put a price on it. You know, yeah, it might be a big group, it might be a small group. But yeah, we have our little group, Liz and I, and we find we recruit, like, you know, when a mum's had a baby and she's gone through this, we're like, yep, come to us. We've got a club. Come to us. We'll look after you.
Yeah. Do you remember, Liz, when Lorinska went through that? Like, Lorinska, did you talk to Liz about your miscarriage?
Yeah. She was, I think, the only one. I did not tell anyone. There was Liz and another girlfriend, actually, Naomi. They were the only two people, because I was so scared of getting judged. I was so scared of, you know, just things that were going through my head at the time. And then you know, and Liz has had her own journey too, so I was really heavily leaning on her for the support that I needed. And you know, it's just those kind of simple, just those simple things, like it's going to be okay. You know, I think there was a bottle of champagne that was provided, which really helped too. I was like, gulp, help.
There sometimes, you know, wouldn't you agree, Lorinska, though? Like, as soon as you put it out there and you start talking and you're vulnerable, I think that's, you know, it's just a perfect word that encapsulates exactly, you know, what comes, you know, to you when you are, you know, so honest. And I think if there's one thing that I think you need to have with support is to be open. And I think, you know, unfortunately, if there's a lot of people who, you know, aren't and don't have that, and if you don't feel supported and safe, you're not going to be open, you know. And I think that goes with friendship, and I think that goes for a lot, you know, in many different I guess realms. But I think if even in a friendship, you know, you've got to be open, you've got to be honest, you've got to be raw, because then you'll only get that support that you need, you know.
Well, I reckon having the tough conversations is really important. Like, you know, we tend not to talk about like periods, and we tend not to talk about miscarriages, and we don't talk really about pregnancy except for the blissfulness of it. So I think, you know, having real conversations is like critical in not only understanding that, one, like you said, Lorinska, you're not alone. You know, the sudden realization that, hang on, my body didn't fail me. I didn't do anything wrong. That actually this is something that unnecessarily so happens, you know, very regularly. You know, 1 in 4 women will experience, you know, miscarriage or a form of child loss in pregnancy, and 1 in every 135 pregnancies will end in stillbirth. And I think these are real facts. These are real figures, but they're also real people. Like putting the person back behind the stat and behind the information is really important, to realize that, hang on a second, there is a village around you, and if you want it, it's there for you, regardless of how isolated and how silenced you feel in these moments of real trial, where everything is challenged in life, these deep, dark spaces that you might face. There is a way out, and there is hope, regardless of where your mindset is at, and having that group of people around you, but allowing yourself, like you said, Liz, to be vulnerable and to bare yourself and bare your soul somewhat. It takes a huge amount of courage to allow that vulnerability to shine, but without it, we can't heal, and we can't keep moving forward and allow that part of our life to walk with us, but not define us. Does you sort of get what I'm talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I just think that the key, it's almost like when you do speak about it, the world is off your shoulders, and you're not feeling like you're carrying you know, the weight. And then also people give you, like, what I loved was the little tips and tricks. You know, like I had one lady say, which worked really out, she goes, you know, every time you think of it, or you get really worked up about it, or you get stressed about it, it's so simple, you just visualize a stop sign.
Yeah.
And it was just something so simple. And, you know, and it's those moments when you're just about to go to sleep. You know, you're just about to doze off and your brain just starts to go and you start to think about it. And, you know, you start racing and, you know, was it because I ran upstairs too quick? Was it because this, you know, the stupid things that had nothing to do with it whatsoever. But, you know, having that stop sign, it was like great. And I went through all the DMs. I was like, I'm going through these. I want to, you know, and then that is something that now I've been able to tell other women and say, you know, this is, or even husbands. We've actually had husbands check in to say, we don't know, you know, this has happened and how do we deal with this? I don't know what the right thing to say is. I don't know what the wrong thing to say is. And then, you know, we just say, just being there, supporting, you know. But I think that's a really, you know, that's been something that, you know, you get the info and then you share it on and you just think, oh, you know, you're going to help other, you know, families. Because it is, you know, especially when gets down, you know, and you're showing, you know, the siblings, they, you know, if I had a belly out here, Penelope knows what pregnancy is. You know, she would ask all those tricky questions. So I think, you know, it's important for us to let them know, like, what help can we give? And, you know, the mothers community is just such an important one, you know. And yeah, it doesn't need to be like, you know, 50,000 people, 1,000 people, you know, it can just be like a tight little group that you have, you know, it doesn't have to be these big whopper ones that you feel like you're going to get lost in. It can just be small and little, like, you know, we've got lots of friends, but there's only a really tight group that we talk to about our issues. I mean, I think I just rattled them off, like 2 people. So
and 750,000 of them as well.
Yeah, and I love every.
I love that you. I think it's really, you know, I'm really glad that you did speak out, because I think for the people that did see that, despite the fact that really for you it was that close, you know, close-knit group, and it was Liz that you were speaking to, and, you know, only your really close friends, but there was something that said, hang on, I need to tell people about this, because I think, you know, the premise of being straightforward, no holes barred, and nothing's off limits, I think is, and look, that's what we're trying to achieve with the chats that we're having even today with you guys, is about the fact that, you know, what is the conversations we want to be having? What do we need to get out there? What do women need to know? What is pregnancy, and how is it different between what you might have experienced, Liz, versus what you experienced, Lorinska, and all the stuff in between, to make sure that we can just put it all out there and allow people to understand that every journey is different. And your journey is so unique, but having the tools and the right conversation is critical. And I think, so let's jump to, I'd love to talk about your Bub app, because I think the first time, you know, I suppose we connected through email was around the time that you were developing this amazing app, and you were sharing real and validated information backed by research, which really ticked so many boxes for me, because that's exactly what we do at Still Aware. Is it's not about saying this is what we think and, you know, good luck. It's actually about saying this is what research says. However, how do you want to hear it, and how can we have the conversation with one another without fear, but rather to empower you and to help that village come beside you. Can you tell me a bit more about, I suppose, where Bub App came from, and, like, you know, what it's all about, what's it for, and who's it targeted to?
We knew that there was such a strong need to have support. And I think for Lorinska and I to have each other, and to know that we had each other, and to know that some women, even people that we had spoken to, you know, or we crossed paths with, or to hear that people didn't have support. And I don't mean just, you know, using that word loosely, you know, I think the true meaning behind support, you know, what does it really mean? It means that, you know, you've got someone there to call on when, you know, times are tough, or to pull you out when, you know, you really need, you're having a bad day or a bad week or a bad month, or and to help you get through. And I think that was pretty much the premise for developing the app, I think, for us. We're both, I guess, we're so, I'll be the first to call on an expert or a professional to ask a question, and, you know, too. So I think obviously being backed by research and knowing that, you know,
and I think that was the part, wasn't it, Liz? Because I remember going through a lot of the pregnancy apps, and even though, you know, a mother's word is brilliant and fantastic, but in my eyes, it's the mother's opinion on, so say for example, it was a conversation about, you know, should you have caffeine when you're pregnant? It was the pregnancy apps that we were looking at, and when I say looking at every single one, we trolled through them. It was just written by a mother. And I said to Liz, as much as I love to hear a mother's opinion, I want to know from a medical point of view, how much caffeine should I have? You know, what vitamins should I be taking? What multivitamin is the best? Do I take folic acid? Do I mix it with a multivitamin pregnancy tablet? So I think that was one of the other things that we were quite alarmed, was there was actually not that support there when, you know, because not everyone has the ability to go and see an obstetrician. Not everyone has the ability to have, you know, a midwife. So for us, we thought, well, when you've got those tough, tricky questions, who can you just literally text, put a call out to and say, you know, I need a bit of help. Like I'm going through this, or I'm feeling this, or I've lost this, like, you know, let's, you know, if we're going all out there like a mucus plug. I'd never had that. I was like, what is that? Like, what is that? Okay, is that normal? You know, those things you want to talk to an expert about, because you're bringing a child into life. It's a big deal. Or, you know, haven't felt movement for a while. Is that, am I meant to count movement? Like, there's just so many things that go through your head, especially first time pregnancy. You know, you are growing a human, like that's a huge thing your body is doing. So, you know, you want to have some medical facts behind what is actually going on with your body. And that was one of the things like that, that's kind of, I think, a big part of it, where it started with.
That was I think I remember that conversation that we had. Like, I know, you know, we obviously knew that the community aspect was something we were going to have. We were always going to have a network for women to feel supported. That was the base of it all. But Lorinska and I were like gobsmacked when we just couldn't believe that I was reading about things that were topics that were so important, written by, you know, like in some cases mums, or in other cases bloggers, you know. And I remember just thinking, and I remember our conversation precisely, it was like, I call on an expert. Like, you know, you don't, you know, what's credible and what's not, and how do I decipher through this, you know? Do I pick up an article and read it because it claims to be something, and you know, and I'm not true of the source? Like, I want to know from an expert, and that's generally what you do if you have a question, you know, that you might keep for, let's say, your antenatal appointments. But what if it keeps me up at night? You know, like, what I want it answered, and I want to know that I can tap in and I can clear my mind, because we know how important that is, to wake up in the morning and to know that, you know, I have, you know, my concerns. I no longer have a concern, or, you know, as much of a concern, because I've spoken about it, or I've asked for help, or I've you know, I haven't sat on, you know, this whole intuition. You know, if I've got something that I'm sort of feeling not too sure, and I don't really want to, you know, head off to the GP because it's inconvenient with a child at home, but I just need to clear my mind. I just need a little bit of, you know, I need to put it out there to the universe. I need to ask an expert, and, you know, and feel like I've addressed it to some degree before you head off to your appointment. So I think
that validation is really important, because I think often that second guessing yourself, I think, is a fairly common thing, going, is it really something I need to worry about? Isn't it?
Know.
And I think having that validation, and you mentioned, I think both of you mentioned about, having opinion pieces around, sure, this is normal, or that's not normal, or this is what you should do, and this is what I did. The fact is, it actually doesn't matter what you did, and it doesn't matter what your body did, because everybody's body is actually different.
So different.
Every baby is different. And I think having that backed by research information, dispelling those myths, and knowing that, hey, it's not about the number of movements you're feeling, it's about what's normal for your baby, and knowing the difference between your normal and not normal, and knowing that it's okay to go in and get checked, and having that clear, like you said, Liz, clearing your mind and just getting that extra validation. If you don't have that person alongside you, that support person, just getting the courage to go, you know what, actually, it is okay for me to go in, and I need to, because my baby needs to. And I think, Lorinska, you mentioned, there's a human being you're creating in there. And I think we too often forget that we actually have a responsibility for mum and bub. And I think often we forget that, okay, it's actually not just, it's not just us that we're discounting. It's, if we discount ourselves, we're also discounting our baby. So I think, that whole getting stuff right, getting it out there, making sure that the information is valid and backed by research and evidence is critical. Look, hey, that's exactly what we're all about here, and I think it's really important.
And like if it's a pram, if it's something about a pram or a cot or anything like that, I'm like, I'm all for that. But when it's I'm all for that's right. Our we've got a private mothers group attached to the a Facebook app, and that's where it's this pram or that cot or that cot, and there's such a need for that. Of course there is, but when it comes to the nitty gritty, it's like, as we all said, you just want to be able to go to bed at night and go, okay, I know, and normally it is your gut feeling, like normally you kind of know, like it's your gut, but you just need it validated by an expert. And then when you go and see if your midwife, the obstetrician, or whoever's taking care of your pregnancy journey, and then you see them and you go, okay, all right, you feel a bit less nutty. And let's be honest, those pregnancy hormones are damn crazy. So it's like, I'm going to kill everyone. I just need to know.
Yeah, absolutely.
And sometimes when you need to know, you need to know.
Yeah.
And I can remember so many moments where I just needed to know, like I needed more information on that. Like, and it might have been walking out of my appointment with my obstetrician and going, I need to know more about that, because
sometimes not in there for long enough.
No,
it's like you're in there and you don't want to sound like a psycho. So you're like, oh yeah, I'm all fine. You're okay. You're like, no, I'm actually not fine. But you think, okay, can't see me like that. I've got to be strong.
Yeah, or you don't realise that you had a question because you haven't processed the information. I think sometimes, when we go to antenatal appointments, it's sort of, you talk about baby a lot. And you often, it's not about you. And I know, and that might be, I don't know, it might be diet related. It might be, a question about, fatigue and feeling so overwhelmed by, fatigue, and you've got a little one at home, and you're not going to sit there and talk to, your obstetrician about that, because you've got a designated time slot, but you need to have some more, you need to talk more. And, and I always say to Lorinska, I think on my journey as well, like I suffered from recurrent miscarriage, and I was in a very small percentage of women who just, had 3. So it was under 1%. So I understand that, I'm obviously not talking for a big population, but I think for myself, I just felt like I needed to talk more in my appointments, and I never got that opportunity to just say, you know, those things. Like it was very much process based in the appointment. It was like, okay, Liz, this is what we're going to do. These are the results of your test. This is what we're going to do next. And if we don't do that, we'll do this. Okay, yeah, great. And I would walk out. And yet I would get home and I'd be so sad because I knew that it wasn't normal. You know, I had never spoken to anyone who'd been through what I went through. I had never come across, you know, I'd seen articles and I'd read things, but I didn't know that it was, you know, that in my situation, I would go on, 75% of women would go on to have a successful pregnancy. But it was just that statistic that was missing. And that could have changed me and my emotional well-being. And I think for the years that I was going through all that, for years. And it just would have been that simple. 50%, you're in your situation, 75% of women will go on to have a successful pregnancy. And it's not so uncommon. Yes, it's uncommon, but it's not, you know, it's you will go on to have a successful pregnancy. And I needed to hear that.
And maybe that's all you need to hear, you know.
More than what my appointment could give me. You know, I knew that it wasn't anything that was in my makeup, my genetic makeup. I knew that it wasn't, you know, it wasn't a thyroid issue for myself or whatever. But I just needed to talk more. And it was I needed that emotional support. I needed that from a doctor though, you know, like.
But don't you think that a doctor should allow you the space to speak? I mean, I know that, and I was talking to not a bereaved mum, but an expectant mum today who, you know, she just said, I feel so fortunate that this is my first pregnancy and we found it relatively easy to fall pregnant. She said, but I feel so guilty and I feel so, I'm finding it really anxiety inducing because, you know, she asked me about my story and I said, well, look, you know, it is tough. You know, everybody's journey is different. You know, whilst I've had 7 pregnancies and 3 deliveries and I've got 2 children here, everyone's journey is different. And the ability to be able to have a conversation is critical, and to share that and to say she's feeling anxious because why is it that she's finding it so easy? And, you know, like you said, Liz, you just wanted somebody to actually communicate with you where you were at and what your chances were and what is going on. And I think too often we forget that there's a person there. Like I said before, I think, you know, and I'm so sorry that you experienced, you know, recurrent miscarriage. You know, I actually too really get where you're coming from. And it can feel really isolating and actually debilitating, but knowing that there is, that you can move forward and that there is still life ahead. That's one thing that I know, you know, I'm hearing you say as well, I'm hearing in what you've said that it's going to be okay, you know, and that you're allowed to ask as well. I think it'd be really nice though if a doctor or obstetrician would allow you that space to breathe and speak rather than it just to be appointment driven, you know. Like, wouldn't that have been nice for you to have that space to allow your concerns to be met so that you could be validated, and then to have that information right up front, you know, like you said, Lorinska, that's all she needed to hear was a little bit more, not just this is the path we're going to take with this pregnancy, rather than looking at you as a whole.
Yes, behind it, you know. And that's spot on, Claire.
And you know, like the other thing I think too, that I read this really funny quote, and I was trying to rack my brain to think about it. But you know, then when you fall pregnant after having, you know, miscarriages, and then you fall pregnant, it is so scary. Like, you know, the amount of times that you run to the bathroom, you know, to check if you're passing anything, or, you know, when your back starts to hurt, you think, you know, I had the worst back cramps when I was pregnant with Florence. And I kept saying to Andrew, this is it. Like, it's happening again. Like, I know it is. And with Penelope, it was literally first go pregnant. Like, I didn't even know I was pregnant. I just felt like I was a vehicle. It was the most easiest pregnancy. Flew out, easy birth, perfect child, slept through the night. Like, I was like, what does everyone complain about? This is the easiest job in the world. And then, that's when I had the miscarriage, and it was the biggest shock. Like, it was the biggest shock to me, because I thought, whoa, hang on. That's not what was meant to happen. That, why has it happened to me for? And then falling pregnant with Florence, the stress it had on the family. Like, I was reluctant to tell the family because I didn't want them to get excited. I was, concerned about Penelope, like telling her. I could see that Andrew and I, like I just said, like my back, I just can't explain the pain in it. And I just kept thinking, yep. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And you're just preparing for the worst. So you start thinking the worst. And that whole pregnancy, you get halfway and then you start thinking, okay, I'm halfway. And then all these other emotions you go through, like, it's just never ending until, and I mean, it really is never ending. You have the children and, you still freak out, but but I remember in my last week, I went in to see my obstetrician and I said to Len, I said, I can't do this anymore. I said, I can't be pregnant. I'm so concerned that something's going to happen. And he said, Lorinska, if it's getting this bad and you're so stressed, he said, let's revisit this. And then, a couple of days later, Florence wasn't moving a lot. And I remember calling Liz and just saying, they had me on lunch and they said, her movement is, like, she wasn't when I was having a drink, they weren't concerned. They were so chilled as a cucumber, but they gave me I can't remember, a drink, and then she started mucking about, but it was nothing. They were like, oh yeah, anyway, when I had her, she's a very relaxed child, which Len laughed about my obstetrician, because he said, she was kind of mimicking what she was in your belly, but I just wanted her out. I was like, I can't do this anymore. And that was like the whole pregnancy. Like, you get to each milestone, but you like, and I reckon, going again, and I don't think it's going to be an easy, I don't even know that, but I just feel like, going through that again, I can already feel that it's going to be a stressful time. Like, and that's the part that that it kind of upsets me, because you want to enjoy it, but you just get so anxious that, you're going to go through that path again. And that's why you talk to people like Liz, because she's like, you'll be fine. But that's why that's.
Do you know what? Innocence, like that innocence, I think, that was awesome. Like, your first pregnancy was literally straight out of the textbooks. But
yes.
It's also, in fact, yours was rare. Like, it's actually rare to be straight out of the textbooks and to have everything happen so easily and smoothly. It's actually more common to have it the other way around. And that's the other thing, is we don't know that. We're not told that actually we don't know physiologically we know physiologically what happens in pregnancy, but we also don't know how your body's going to react to pregnancy, and we don't know if you're vulnerable or your baby's vulnerable. So I think, look, I had that blissful, innocent pregnancy in, my pregnancy with Alfie, but, and I was treated like this because everything was fine, but it's a precious, precious moment, and you don't know if your baby is going to be vulnerable and is going to be like Alfie and is going to actually die during childbirth. You don't know that that's going to occur. And it's not about saying, be careful, this could happen. It's actually about saying, okay, so what are the things I need to look out for? And I think, your message of going in and getting checked and saying, look, but her movements weren't like the same as what they normally were, and they were a little bit different. And then, I had a drink and, I relaxed and she started tumbling around again like normal. That's great. That's exactly what you're meant to do. In the fact that her normal is her normal, and and other children, their normal is their normal. It's actually not comparing yourself to anyone else, but understanding that. And I totally get where you're coming from. That innocence is gone, and there is this potential anxiety in place. So how do we combat that? With empowerment, I think, like you're saying, sharing the information, sharing the statistics, but also giving the real valuable tools that you can use to stay protected and to protect you and your baby in pregnancy, so that you can advocate for yourself and listen and dispel those myths that, you know, don't have a glass of juice to try and get your baby moving. If you're worried about your baby's movements, go in. They want to see you.
Oh, and that, I think as soon as I, you know, left, I just felt seeing Florence. So at the time we didn't know it was just a baby, you know, or not just a baby, but, you know, we didn't know it was Florence at the time, but seeing her on the screen, it was like, oh, far out, you know. And I just remember Andrew was like, is everything okay? I was like, yep, you know, it's fine. But then each day I was like, oh, I've just, you know, it just got worse and worse. And then, you know, I think she was 39 weeks. And then, I was just keeping me up at night. And he's like, this is not healthy anymore. And, it was just, when I had her, I just checked every possible thing. And I think too, on the flip side of that is, you know, Liz and I have these open communications, and, you know, you can't, you put yourself in that mum's position, and, you know, we do that every single day we think, oh my goodness, like that, or this, or that, or this. And so, you know, that definitely has an impact on you too, because your heart is just, you just think how, you know, I had in my mother's group, she had lost her child. And, you know, that I just, you know, to this very day, like, we went through that process. We all had girls together. They were two, Lucia and Florence were not even 2 weeks apart. They were so close. And that was like, that knocked, you know, there is nothing that can prepare you. And you know, you're on high alert. And I feel like, that first pregnancy, wow, you know, that was almost cheeky, because they don't come out like that. Or as you said, they don't come out like that. So
but they did in that pregnancy. That was normal for you, for Penelope. That's exactly what was meant to happen, you know. And
although on the flip side, she's got her I actually got crystals on my wrist today for Penelope, because she's like, woohoo now. So I'm getting it back on the flip side. These are carbon crystals.
Yeah, beautiful. Whatever works. I mean, honestly. Yeah, totally. Liz, I'm going to say something.
We all need some crystals in our life. I need some.
We're getting bigger by the minute in this house. I'm going to have like a big one, like holding it against my head, walking around the house soon, just to get through. I'm trying everything.
The balance energies in all your different rooms. I love it.
Go
for it. And I think, you know, what you have done, you know, both of you, in sharing your stories and bearing your souls, you know, with us, and telling us your, you know, a very small portion of your journey, I think hopefully will help others to understand that they're not alone, and that nobody's journey is the same, even though you might be traveling it simultaneously. And that, just understand that you're not alone, and that everyone goes through different journeys, and that you can ask and seek help. So Liz, Bub App and Lorinska Bub App is, you know, a way that people can access accurate information and tools for support if they don't know where else to go, but stuff that's backed by evidence to dispel myths and things. And I appreciate you putting, you know, our information there from Still Aware's perspective for stillbirth prevention and tools that you can use in pregnancy to keep yourself safe and your body and your baby safe. But what else would you like people to take away from today's chat? If you could give anybody who is pregnant 1, 2 or 3 bits of, you know, key advice, I would love to hear your perspectives on that, because each of your journeys is so unique in its own right. And I think that, you know, learning from each other, having that friendship that you guys clearly do have, and that business friendship as well, which it has flourished into, and then continuing that journey on through lockdown and all sorts, but being each other's go-to.
I can see outside.
What do you want to impart? What wisdom shall we leave people with today?
Wisdom. Oh gosh, so much floods to mind. I think Having your village, yeah. I think that's something that I think a lot more people talk about now, you know, but really have your village.
Yeah.
You know, have someone that, you know, you can speak your concerns to, who is going to make you feel better in the morning when you wake up. And, you know, sometimes it's just coffee and a chat. And know that you will always get through the other side, you know. And I feel
true.
yeah. I feel
Yeah.
like, you know, I feel like there's 1,000,001 things that I'd like to impart, but I think that one thing, just knowing that you must have someone, and you need support, and it's not it's this journey into motherhood, pregnancy aside, you know, trying to get pregnant aside, through being pregnant and then obviously into motherhood, without a village, it's every day is hard. You need to have those networks. You just have to. And I think that's probably
great advice.
No, so
Big either.
You
It
have
can
to.
be like a little village or a giant one.
It doesn't have to. You need to feel safe, you know. You have to feel safe. You need to know that you're supported. And I think if you're supported, you will feel safe. And I think, you know, vice versa. If you're, you need to feel safe, and we all deserve to wake up in the morning and know that we can talk to someone and that we've set our minds at ease. You know, and I think that helps us get through our days, and being a mum with all the concerns and all the weight and all the, you know, we wear many hats. I think we can all agree. I just, you need to wake up and know that you're going to get through, if you've got your village, and that's pretty much, some days that's what you got. And
yeah, you need it. And, you know, like I think just going on from that, Liz, too, like just, you know, the thing that I've learnt the most from the first time I peed on a stick to, you know, going through, you know, all the trials and tribulations, that, you know, each time when I really was stressed or just was unsure, or I knew deep down in my gut what was really going to happen or what was happening. And I feel like, you know, trusting that gut, like, you know, whether it's through your preconception, through your pregnancy, when you have your children, it's just trusting your gut. Like, what does your gut tell you? And trust it. You know your body the best, you know your child the best. If it's telling you, go and get it sorted, go and get help, whatever it is. Like, you know, I just really, I often say, like, you know, when you're at the quietest, or, you know, just, you know, think about it and go, okay, like, this is what I think it is, trust it, and either get help or speak to someone. But, you know, and as Liz said, you know, having that support, like my obstetrician, he's been my biggest, like, he's just done so many amazing things. Like, he's gone past the point of just an obstetrician. Like, I have had that relationship where I've literally said, I know you've got 50,000 women waiting out there, but I'm not going because I'm going through this. And just his manner and his way, and sometimes his wittiness and his funniness would just swing me out of it. And I'll be like, okay, yep, I know that this is okay. But I'd say 99% of the time, I knew the answer because it was in my gut. And I feel like sometimes we can say, oh, you know, I think this, but I'm just not sure, you know, and when you still have a think about it and it comes to you, but the village is, I just think, that's, and your village can be really, you know, it can be anyone, but it's just got to be someone that the people you trust. And I mean, even in our group of friends, like we've got such a big group, but there's only, as I was saying, there's only a tight little group that actually we often do, you know, the talking to. Like you've got your big group chat and you've got your little one, and then you've got your little one. You've got to be careful who you send your message to. Oh, did I go to that group? Whoops. Liz will be like, you've sent it to the wrong group. I'm like, I don't know about that.
Yeah. Well, I think you've rounded it off all like really nicely. Is, you know, you said, Liz, that, you know, your village, and I think you went into talking then, Lorinska, about your care provider, your clinician, your obstetrician, being somebody who validated your concern and allowed you to speak. And I think remembering that, particularly in pregnancy, your village needs to include your care provider too, is that you can choose, and you have every right to choose the care provider that is right for you. And if it is not the right care provider, find another one. Find someone who listens to you, validates your concerns, and gives you the space to stop, breathe, think, and reflect, so that you can actually tune in to what it is that your, you know, what it is your gut and your instincts are saying. I think all great advice. Love it. And I think I feel very privileged that you guys have made the time to chat with me, and to allow our listeners and viewers to be part of your journeys and, you know, listen to what you've done. And I think there is so much more. Oh my goodness, we've only just skimmed the surface.
I know, goodness, it just could keep going. Yeah,
absolutely.
I should be muted, and Liz, because she's like, actually, you know, once I get off the phone to Len, I call Liz. I'm like, so Liz, what do you reckon I should do?
I reckon we should make sure the conversation continues, and we'd love to chat again. And you know, and allow others to gain you know, your perspectives too, because there's lots we can learn from other people's journeys. And you know, you've created the beginning of a village through Bub App for many people, and I loved hearing and being part of your village for, what was it, about an hour or 45 minutes or whatever it is.
Oh wow!
So I really appreciate it.
Talk, can't we? This is how our conversations go to. We're like, okay, my child is painting the walls, Liz, I've got to go.
I think we can all relate to that. It's do you know what? Let them, I reckon.
Right. I'm actually hiding, but behind this wall, I noticed when I came in, I'm like, oh, why do I have paint down on there? Actually, you could probably see it. I was like, I didn't know that was there.
No, that's
love it. Oh, that's so tiny.
Oh, yeah.
There's paint there. I was like, oh, what was that doing there? I was like, Penelope did that piece of artwork up there. I was like, Penelope, that's where you paint. It's not on the walls.
Wow.
Like, thank you.
I love it. Thank you so much.
Claire.
And look forward to continuing the conversation another time. Really appreciate it. Have a wonderful, wonderful afternoon, and keep being each other's, you know, rock. I love it. Brilliant.
Thank you so much. Take care. Bye.
Bye. Thanks for joining us today, and we look forward to you joining us again next time. Remember, it's never too early to have a conversation, but it really can be too late. If you'd like to know more about Still Aware, the charity that's bringing you this series, head to stillaware.org.